Hey guys, it's Stephanie. I'm back again today. I thought I would do a 20 books that I would like to read in the year 2020. Some of these are pre-orders, some I'm not going to be able to show you. They're out, but I don't physically own them. But the ones that I do have that are backlisted, I will, of course, show you. So, here we go. Maybe I can give you some new ideas as well. The first book I would love to get to in 2020 is called About the Author. There we go. By Jeanne. Colapinto. So this is a book about a bookseller in Manhattan who, it says, has never written anything in his life and then suddenly writes a best-selling book that sells for millions to be made into a movie. And it's kind of the story of, if he's never written anything, how did he suddenly become so successful? So that is one book that I'm very eager to get to this year. Next, I would love to read If You Find This Letter by Hann. Brencher. If I say any of these names wrong, I'm very sorry. This is a book about a girl who graduates from college and moves to New York City. She's really excited about the glamour of it all, and ends up kind of actually feeling very depressed and homesick. So she starts writing letters about how she's feeling, about all different things that interest her, and leaving them around the city, kind of in hopes that if somebody finds a letter she wrote, that it might brighten their day. This one's been out for a while, and I know it's been pretty popular, so I'm eager to get to it since I haven't yet, is The Night Olivia Fell by Christina McDonald. This is a book about a teenage girl named named Olivia, who ends up dead, and it's basically the story of her mom trying to figure out what happened, because it turns out that when they are doing the autopsy and everything to figure out what happened to Olivia, she was actually pregnant, was last seen with her boyfriend, and her mom had no idea. So it's kind of her mom trying to figure out what happened the night that I guess she fell or she passed away. This is Zoo, or Letters Not About Love, by Victor Shklovsky. Probably said that completely wrong. But this is about, I could be completely wrong, but I want to say a boy who falls in love with a woman, but she doesn't really have interest in him, I'm pretty sure. But he really wants to stay in touch with her. And so the deal they make is she says that he can write to her and they can keep in touch, but they can talk about anything except love and relationships. They are not allowed to talk about love or relationships in the letters they write, but they can talk or write about anything else. And that seems interesting to me. So I'm interested to see what that's about. This, I'll be honest, I again don't know much about, but this is the Jane Austen Marriage Manual by Izzo. And let's see. It says Kate is happy with her life. She has supportive friends, a glamorous magazine career, and she loves all things Jane Austen. Then she suddenly loses her job and finds herself in a crisis that is similar to that of a heroine in a Jane Austen story. Next is You'd Be Mine by Erin Hann. I've had this for a while too and just haven't gotten to it yet. So this is the story of a girl who, it says, was born into country music royalty, and I'm a huge country music fan, so that's kind of what drew me into this. I'm assuming that means her parents are country music artists of some sort, and then they pass away. I'm not sure. I guess it's in an accident maybe. And her kind of trying to make sense of where to go from there. I believe that she's also a singer, but kind of steps back from that dream when her parents pass away. And then I believe she gets the chance to open for some big up-and-coming country star. This is Alphabet Weekends by Elizabeth Noble, which I actually think this is going to be my next read. So this follows several people, but I think the main storyline is about two friends named Natalie and Tom. And Natalie has recently been broken up with by her long-term boyfriend, Simon, just when she thought he was going to propose. And her friend Tom, who has been friends since they were young, kind of decides to step in and try to make her feel better. And I believe that Tom has kind of been in love with her since they were teenagers, but she's always only seen him as a friend. And it's kind of him trying to make her see him as more. And the plot, which is kind of what got me into this because I'm obsessed with the English language and just words, is that every weekend they have to hang out and do something, and they take turns. Whatever they do has to come from the next letter of the alphabet. So the first thing they do starts with A, and then she chooses something that starts with a B for them to do. The next weekend he chooses something that starts with a C, and so on, and kind of what sort of develops from that. Next is a book called Guilty. I'm not totally remembering this one either. So it says, on a warm summer's morning, 13-year-old girl Constance Lawson is reported missing. A few days later, Constance's uncle, Carl Lawson, suddenly finds himself swept up in a media frenzy created by journalist Amanda Bow, implying that he is the prime suspect. So it looks like this child is missing and her uncle becomes the prime suspect. 6 years later, Carl's life is in ruins, his marriage is over and his family destroyed, but the woman who took everything from him is thriving. So this reporter now has a successful career, and the reporter is the one that kind of ruined his life by blaming him for the disappearance of his niece. And kind of looks like what happens from there. Carl is mad because his life has fallen apart, and it sounds like kind of wants revenge on this reporter, who is now very successful in what he does about that. This is America's First Daughter. It is the story of Patsy Jefferson, who is Thomas Jefferson's daughter, and I love historical fiction. So I think this is just kind of a fictionalized story of her life as the first daughter. Next, we've got A Piece of the World. This is, well, it's by Christina Baker Klein. And let me see. It says, to Christina Olson, the entire world was her family's remote farm in the coastal town of Cushing, Maine. Born in the home her family had lived in for generations and increasingly incapacitated by illness, Christina seems destined for a small life. Instead, for more than 20 years, she was host and inspiration for the artist Andrew Wyeth, and became the subject of one of the best-known paintings of the 20th century. Okay, so, and I believe that this might be part of the painting. I will admit I'm not completely familiar with that painting, but I'm guessing it's a well-known painting and kind of the story of the girl that inspired it. This kind of grabbed my attention. It's Love and Other Consolation Prizes by Jamie Ford. It's another historical fiction. It grabbed my attention because, excuse me, it is based on one of the World's Fairs, and I am just very, very interested in World's Fairs. I always have been. Kind of got into it because of the 1904 World's Fair that was in St. Louis and all the things that came from there. But World's Fairs in general just really fascinate me. And I believe it's the story of a boy who goes, he thinks he's visiting the fair, but he ends up being like part of one of the exhibits and being auctioned off, I believe. This is The Last Collection by Jeanne Mackin, or Mackin. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that one exactly. And it is the story of the fight between Coco Chanel and Elsa Schiaparelli, who in Paris 1938 are kind of vying for who is going to be the best fashion designer. and kind of their battle for that. That grabbed my interest just because I've always been into fashion and things like that. Have always kind of held my interest. Excuse me. The last one that I actually have to show you is called The Baker's Secret. Again, a historical fiction. And I believe this is a baker in 1944, so just after D-Day. And I believe that this baker is like secretly baking extra bread and giving it away to starving people who need it that's maybe outside of their ration or something like that. So that really grabbed my interest. So that's the last book that I have actually to physically show you. Another one that I'm very interested to read, excuse me, I'm going to look at my list here, is Meg and Joe by Virginia Cantrip. That book's already out. I believe it's a modern retelling of Little Women, which I've always been very interested in, so that's on my radar. I'm a huge Emily Giffin fan. And she's got a book coming out in June called The Lies That Bind. And I'm especially interested in this one because I believe it takes place around 9/11 and my birthday is September 12th. So I've always had like kind of a connection to that. So I'm very excited for her newest book. I would love to read Fuller House, which is a memoir written by Anderea Barber, who played Kimmy Gibbler in Full House, which is one of my favorite shows. The Other Windsor Girl by Georgie Blalock. I've always been very into the royal family. And this is a fictionalized novel about Princess Margaret. So I'm really interested in that. I believe I would get a lot of enjoyment out of it. A book called 8 Perfect Murders that's coming out in March by Peter Swanson. I believe that follows a bookseller who is kind of making a list of the most successful murders that he can find in literature. And then I think he finds 8 of them. And then suddenly those murders actually begin to happen. They're carried out exactly as they were carried out in the fictionalized books. And it's a story of who committed those murders. And because I'm so into books and things like that, obviously that really grabbed my attention. Let me see. The last 2 that I'm interested and excited for are a memoir by Lauren Akins called Live and Love that comes out in May. I'm a huge country music fan. A big fan of Thomas Rhett, and also have kind of been familiar and known him and his family for a long time. So that's something I'm really excited about. And then the last one is the Hunger Games prequel that is coming out in May of 2020. That title slips my mind right now, but I'm sure you've heard a lot about it. And I was a huge Hunger Games fan when they first came out, so I'm really excited to read that as well.